Greetings everyone, I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion, as you can tell from the title up there, continuing my trek through the episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond one at a time. Today we're on episode 20 of season 6, A Vote for Debra. And this is another one that got some love at the Emmys that year, because Patricia Heaton got a nomination for Best Lead Actress in a Comedy Series for this. Vote for Debra. This is another Lou Schneider and Steve Scroven episode, and they did this one together, which, when you look at how well the writing is between Debra and Ray and a lot of the background singers, you can definitely tell their fingerprints are all over this. And if you've seen a lot of their episodes by now, it definitely feels familiar. They seem to write some of the best episodes of the whole series. And of course, this is another one that deals with relationships, and one thing you should probably not do, especially when your spouse is involved in PTA or other type of schoolwork, and that is vote against her, if for no other reason than just for appearances. Before I get too far into the video, just a reminder, if you want to support the channel, both the Patreon and PayPal links are down below. If you just want to do a one-off request or one-off support, go the PayPal route. If you want to continuously support the channel and gain access to videos early and be able to suggest topics for future videos, go the Patreon route. Either way, your support is appreciated. Vote. This is an episode that the first part of it I saw was in the first 6 years video that this season started with. Or should I say finished when they did it, but for me, I did it at the top of the season. And that's the big moment where you watch the whole thing, you're like, that's the moment that got Patricia the Emmy nomination. And then later on in syndication, I saw the episode and then saw the full one when I got the DVD set. The plot is that Debra is spending more and more time going out and seeing the other parents at school functions, mainly with their version of a PTA. I don't think they use that phrase specifically in the episode, but more or less what it is. So Raymond has to stay at home with the kids, put them to bed, and then do whatever he wants afterwards, which you already know he's going to be complaining about from what we've seen him do so far throughout the show. Anytime where he has to spend time with the kids solo, he always complains. The episode where he had to take him to the park, every other time. Part of it's his man-childness, and part of it is that he just doesn't want to do it. Which you could say a little bit is a little misogynistic, that considering who his parents are, you could see it comes from the super traditional value where the male is usually the disciplinarian and the primary caregiver and nurturer is the woman. But they're trying to get a little out of it, but Ray still has some of that stupid stuff. As Robert put in one episode, the moron gene. He's complaining about the whole time, trying to get him to go to sleep. And then, of course, when Debra comes in, he starts trying to vent to her. Kind of like how when Debra has a rough day, sometimes she tries to vent to Ray. So it's a nice little subversion of their usual positions. And Ray's all like, oh, jeez, oh, it's a rough day. And Debra's all excited and bubbly. So another little thing, because Debra, unless it's one of those bad days like the day she took the kids to the supermarket and they got into a bunch of stuff in season 2, or when the car broke down in season 1, she's usually like in a middle of the road place unless something recently just happened. Whereas Ray, he's always usually somebody chipper, kind of also in the middle of a road unless he's got something super exciting. So it could be subversion, but then also other times it's very fitting. And Debra drops a big bomb on Ray in that she's running for president of the school district. Because so far, Parker, of course, played by Patricia's real-life husband, is running unopposed. And we all know how Ray feels about her, about Parker. He stole our babysitter, amongst other stuff, like making their kids trade back their Hacky-Doo cards 2 seasons ago. Because of this, Ray, at first you could tell he doesn't really like the idea of it, but he's going to support his wife. And you could already see where the seeds of the main conflict in this episode are being planted. Now they go to the function. It's a potluck function. They bring veggies. And what does Parker bring? Beef tenderloin. You can already tell he's going a little uptown, because it's like, really? Even watching it as an adult now, I'm like, really? For a function for parents, you're going to bring beef tenderloin? Oh yeah, that's not sending I'm going to buy your vote, especially since only one person's running against me type of thing. Oh, no. Personally, I'd probably just vote against him on principle for that alone, but given what we see with Ray, he's probably not the best person. Probably one of those people that says one thing, does something else. So that makes him the perfect politician. Sorry, I had to throw some political humor into this episode, considering it is about voting. Well, Ray, when he finds a tenderloin or a second dose of it, he starts shoving it in his pants pockets thanks to the influence of another person, which embarrasses Debra, which is like, really, Ray? As an adult, who at this point is older than I am as I'm recording this, because, let's see, if I'm doing this, my timeline right, or Debra would have been about my age that I am now at the beginning of season 1. Give or take, maybe a little bit younger. Ray should be around 4 years older than her based on one couple comments, so he would have been 36. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He'd be in his early 40s at this point, so really more than old enough to know better than that. But that's Ray for you, like I said, man-child. Now, one thing though that I kind of feel for Ray is that Debra is really trying to go with the whole appearance thing with him. I mean, because Parker's wife's all dressed up in all that makeup and all that nice little outfit, whereas he's just in a casual shirt, doesn't even have it buttoned up. Which the button-up part I get. You probably should at least have it buttoned up. I mean, if I'm going to wear a dress shirt or even something that's like semi-dress shirt, I'd at least have it buttoned up properly. But her getting on him about it tucked in, it's like, tucking in is optional. I mean, depending on the thing. And everyone else doesn't really seem dressed up, so it's like, it doesn't really seem like it needs to be tucked in. Her getting all anal about the appearance is like, well, which, keep it in mind, that will come up again later. Then, after the whole thing with the meat and pants, we skip to the next time where Ray's home alone with the kids. He's trying to get him to go to bed with no more water because he knows it's going to wake the twins up. And this right here just shows how much Marie loves to stamp over boundaries, because Ray has clearly said no water. And what she tried to come in with 3 cups of water. And she's trying to lay on the guilt trip a little bit, but doesn't work. So for once, Ray actually stands up to his mother. But she still tries it. I would never deny my children water. There's denying water, and then there's telling them no because you usually wake up too much. You know, basically doing some parenting, telling them like, yeah, if you drink water now, you're going to be waking up at blah, blah, blah. I know how your bladder works. If in the middle of the night you wake up and want water, that's a different story. But of course, part of it's also Ray hating having to deal with the kids when they're getting difficult, especially the twins since they're starting to get older at this point. Let's see, they were 2 in the first season, so yeah, they'd be about 8. Oh yeah, 8, 9-ish. So yeah, they're starting to be a handful, starting to tag team the parents. I mean, in the whole water thing, Frank does do a bedwetting problem one, even though by this point we know it wasn't legit. But I think it's just Frank being Frank, throwing out his anger about it. Of course, Robert doesn't correct him, but that's because I think he doesn't want to deal with the whole thing. Well, they're all excited. They all start talking about Debra and different things because, you know, they all have their own ideas about if Frank doesn't think she'd be running. Marie, also for other reasons, being her own Marie self. Robert, of course, is always on Debra's side when it comes to stuff like this. Always. So he's the only one that's really voting for her. And then when she comes back, we find out she did not win. And Debra's all dejected, mainly because she thought everybody liked her and was going with it. And of course, Marie has to go in with one of her things. People can fool you, dear. Marie. I know you know how to read a room, Marie. And you did that just to kick her when she was down. And of course, it turns out the votes were pretty close. It was like a 6-vote difference. And Ray just has to put his foot in his mouth with a comment. Well, it's not like he lost by 1 vote. With just the way he says it, with how he was fishing for how the voting went. Debra gets curious, and she asks the question that we're all thinking at that point. Ray, who did you vote for? And before he even says anything, the way he reacts, you can definitely tell. You voted against your wife. And everybody wants to leave at that point. Because even Marie knows there's no way she can justify trying to defend Ray with this. Voting against your wife in a situation like that. And of course, Debra starts wailing into him verbally about it. Like, why'd you vote against him? You hate Parker. I don't care if my platform was anti-puppy. You vote for me. And Ray tried to defend it. It's like saying he hated Parker as a person, but he liked him as a candidate, which is like, oh yeah, we all know, Ray, that's a bullcrap defense, and you know it. We all know you're just trying to avoid a verbal tongue lashing at this point. And then him doing other things like, you're not supposed to ask people who they voted for. That's why we put him in the box, as our forefathers did. I'm not going to stand here unless you badmouth America. And some of the verbal lashing that Debra gives Ray is justified, or she's pointing out that Ray has been bitching and complaining the whole time, that he's had to watch the kids by himself, and that the main reason he voted against her was to keep her in the house where, she doesn't really use this phrase, but more or less insinuating where she belongs, while he can go back out. And as she puts it, your vote was a vote for slavery. And what she's going in this little rant, she does mention something about marriage that really is true, and that is that a marriage is two people being there for better or for worse, standing next to each other, standing up for each other no matter what. Essentially being a team, which is true. Which, even if you're not really a big fan of this show, it does have a lot of episodes where they do have a lot of good comments on marriage, about what it should be, partners and all that. And that's a good one right there. Now, she does kind of contradict herself a little bit with that, because she does admit to Ray that she told people at the potluck she didn't know him, which is like, really? Who is being a hypocrite there? Which Ray rightfully calls her out. And they start going on, and Ray even mentions this thing about tucking in his shirt, like saying that Ray wasn't good enough for her. Which, of course, we've seen he's had some of those self-dance before because of Debra's beauty, and also she came from a more upper-class, middle-class family. Which we've seen there's some of the fears that with the family and all that, and part of it in another episode he was like, one of the things but he always thinks is like, how'd he get her? Which definitely one thing I definitely feel as an adult, because it's one of those things that's like, what the? Or to use the TikTok meme, you accidentally left $1 in my hand. Why are you winking at me? Why'd you give me $1? That's probably how he feels with Debra. Well, they do make up a little bit, but then part of it is killed because Parker calls Debra, the whole like good race thing, but then says he wants to work with her when it comes to this, which you already know Ray's not going to like that, and it ends in a typical fashion you did, where Debra just starts ignoring Ray to just talk on the phone with Parker because she already knows where he's going, and he has to go handle the kid situation, which, of course, they got to throw some more political humor in there with that. Don't blame me, I voted for Parker. That's a Ray, either way, no matter which way the vote went, you're screwed. And then, of course, the epilogue scene is another one at the PTA one, which is a scene I usually skip, but it's a fitting epilogue for this type of episode. Now, as I mentioned earlier, just that scene where Patricia's ranting alone, you can see why she got a lead actress Emmy nomination. But there's other little subtle moments where she plays a character well here that you can see where it is. And with the first two acts, it's building towards that rant. Like her little annoyances with Ray, even if I disagree with him. Her disappointment, and then finding the bombshell that it would have been 5 votes instead of 6 if Ray had actually done the right thing and voted for his wife. Yeah, all that. The side characters, Robert, Marie, and Frank, they're only there just to have some lines in the background and be there to interact with Ray and Debra in a couple scenes. So they don't really have a lot to work with, so not much to comment acting-wise other than the usual thing. Peter Good with his zingers, and Doris Roberts excellent as Marie, and of course Brad Garrett as Robert. And then the kid actors, they don't really have a lot to do. I mean, Allie really doesn't have that many episodes that center around her, and the last one, of course, was the previous episode. Amen. There's not really a lot to talk about acting-wise. I mean, that one, the only thing that I could have talked about was when she asked a question. And then, of course, season 2, when she's acting bratty in the episode where they're trying to learn active listening. There's not going to be nothing for another couple episodes. In the twins, there's nothing until season 8 in the episode involving P.P. Raymond. We'll get to that when we get to that one. And I don't even know which twin they used for that one. They seem to alternate which twin plays what because the twins are so interchangeable. I know it's a little joke on the twins, but with what we see of them, they are. And there's not really much else to talk about with this episode other than definitely a well-deserved Emmy nomination. I didn't write down who beat Patricia Heaton for this one, but it must have been an excellent performance to beat her. And it's interesting, this is the same season where Brad, Doris, and Ray all won. And of course, Peter was nominated for supporting, which of course he lost to Brad. It's just a shame that Peter, out of all the main cast, is the one person who never won an Emmy for this, which is a shame. I mean, there's a couple episodes where I can look at it and go, that one he should have won for. Probably compile a list. Like Ping Pong, I don't remember if he was nominated, but he should have been just for that speech at the end. And then in season 1, the one where he's dressed as Santa, and the whole ball thing, but season 1 didn't really get a lot of love when it comes to the critic thing, even though a lot of the episodes I remember just from how many times I've watched that season come from that one, but that could be that. Now, we're going to be going from an episode about the relationship to another one involving something with the in-laws, and when you think about it, this is going to be the beginning of one of the arcs that carries over from episode to episode. And that's going to be the big season 6, season 7 feud between Debra and Marie. Now, it's going to be a big, big one. But here we're going to be going with it. Because if I'm looking at it right, let's see, I know, I think Mother's Day might be the actual beginning of it, but there's a little bit of it in the next one, so I don't have that much in the notes other than who wrote it for these next couple ones, but it's going to go, and of course it ends in the first episode of season 7, so till then, guys.